This quiet sea hides one of Europe's boldest construction gambles. Between Denmark and Germany, a narrow waterway interrupts a continental route.
For decades, ferries carried the traffic that roads and rails could not.
Every crossing depended on schedules, weather, ships, and time.
The obvious answer seemed simple: build a bridge.
But this water is not empty space. It is a working sea. Engineers chose something stranger, a tunnel built in pieces, then sunk.
This is the Fehmarnbelt Fixed Link, a hidden corridor beneath the Baltic.
Its planned length is roughly 18 kilometers, crossing from coast to coast. When complete, it is expected to become the longest immersed road and rail tunnel.
This tunnel is not drilled through rock. It is assembled underwater.
The ocean crossing begins on land, inside a giant concrete factory.
Each tunnel section must behave like a structure and a vessel. Inside the concrete, dense steel reinforcement prepares the tunnel for decades of pressure. Road lanes, rail lines, and service spaces run side by side below the sea. One day, drivers will cross here, while ships pass silently above.
The railway may be the tunnel's most important long-term promise. Freight could move across borders without waiting for a ship. The tunnel is designed to pull Hamburg and Copenhagen closer together. Before anything can sink, the seabed must be understood. A narrow trench is carved into the seabed to receive the tunnel. Even mud becomes an engineering and environmental challenge. Sensors and surveys track how the sea responds to construction. This is not just a work site. It is a living marine environment.
A project this large must pass through courts, permits, and public scrutiny.
On shore, the project becomes a synchronized machine. The finished sections wait in basins before meeting the sea. Before launch, each element must be sealed like a floating chamber.
Then water does the impossible. It begins to lift concrete.
A structure weighing thousands of tons now floats like a ship. Tugboats guide the tunnel section toward its underwater destination. This is not a race. It is a controlled operation, measured in patience. At sea, the element must stop almost exactly above its trench.
By controlling ballast, engineers turn floating concrete into sinking concrete.
The descent is slow, silent, and unforgiving. A tiny error here can echo through the entire tunnel. When it touches the seabed, an idea becomes infrastructure. The tunnel grows only when each sealed section connects perfectly. Between each section, a seal must hold back the Baltic Sea.
Only after sealing can workers remove water and open the passage. Inside, the sea becomes a dry corridor of concrete.
The impossible becomes possible by repeating one exact operation again and again.
Dozens of giant elements must become one continuous route. Some sections are wider, carrying the hidden systems that keep the tunnel alive.
A tunnel this long must breathe, monitor, and respond.
Behind the concrete, control systems watch the tunnel around the clock. Emergency routes are part of the design, not an afterthought.
The greatest engineering may feel ordinary to the people using it. Beside the road, trains will run through their own protected tubes. On Denmark's coast, the hidden tunnel returns to daylight. On the German side, the tunnel must connect to a larger corridor. A fixed link is only as strong as the roads and rails behind it.
The deeper challenge may be money, time, and coordination.
The project is designed as a bet that future traffic will repay it.
Supporters see connection. Critics see cost, disruption, and uncertainty.
The sea sets limits that engineering cannot simply ignore.
Underwater, sound travels far, so construction noise becomes part of the design.
Around the worksite, monitoring vessels help keep the project accountable.
The sea decides when the largest operations can safely happen.
Sometimes progress means waiting for the right hour.
Specialized vessels turn open water into a floating construction platform. Cables, ballast, and sensors work together to control the descent.
Below the surface, precision matters more than drama. The tunnel rests on a carefully prepared bed beneath the seabed.
One section settles, and the crossing grows by another giant step.
Once placed, the tunnel must be protected from currents, anchors, and time.
The more complete it becomes, the less visible it is.
Ships will keep crossing above a road and railway hidden below. A ferry journey could become a drive of about 10 minutes.
By train, the crossing could take only a few minutes. The tunnel's real power is the network it completes.
In infrastructure, minutes saved can reshape entire supply chains.
Supporters argue better rail links can shift traffic toward cleaner movement.
But every forecast is a promise made before the future arrives.
On megaprojects, delay is not unusual. It is almost expected.
Even under pressure, the construction machine keeps moving.
The first installed element turns years of planning into something physical. One piece is a milestone. Many pieces become a crossing.
After the concrete comes the hidden work that makes it usable. Power, signals, sensors, and communications turn concrete into infrastructure.
Even finished, the tunnel must constantly manage water.
The project is not finished when it opens. Maintenance begins immediately.
On opening day, the old sea gap becomes a hidden road.
A route once defined by ferries may be remembered differently. For most travelers, the miracle will simply feel convenient.
The greatest structures are sometimes the ones we barely notice. This is not a bridge over water, it is a crossing through it.
Every permanent connection leaves a temporary disturbance behind.
Megaprojects are built from concrete, but also from public trust.
This tunnel is a bet that tomorrow will need faster connections.
A single undersea link can redraw how a continent moves.
Denmark has spent generations turning water barriers into fixed links. The Femern Belt project may become the next chapter in that story.
Element by element, the sea is crossed without building above it.
When complete, the crossing's most dramatic feature may be its invisibility. Above, the sea continues. Below, a new route carries the future.
Impossible often means complicated enough to require extraordinary patience.
The sea keeps its surface, while humanity builds beneath it. Some megaprojects rise into skylines. This one disappears and changes everything.